welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in September. So I read a total of 17 books, and you're like, whoa lady, but I read seven of them in one day, and again you're like, whoa lady, but no, don't worry, they were short books. I read the six like creature feature novellas, or you'd probably just call them short story. I mean, the longest one was like 50 something pages. So, but I read the six of those on Kindle Unlimited. They were by several very famous authors like Grady Hendrix and Josh Malerman, Paul Tremblay. So I wound up reading those all in one day, and obviously you'll be able to see that in my reading vlog if you follow me. If not, go check out my reading vlog. Go see how I read 430 pages in one day. And then the other book, I was halfway through. It was A Clown in a Cornfield. But anyway, I'm jumping ahead. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the books I read in September. The very first book I read in September was Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This is about a woman who falls in love with a man, and he seems absolutely perfect. But whenever she gets to know him a little bit better, like when they get married, he basically becomes a jerk. That's totally the summary of the story. He starts like verbally abusing her, and she does not get to go anywhere. He has her like under his finger. She cannot do anything without him knowing. Nobody believes her when she tries to tell them, because he is such a well-known person in the community, and she just has to go along with it. This book was really, really tense. Like, I could see the red flags in the relationship before they even started, like, getting real serious. And I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, why are you doing that? Do not move all your money into his account. Do not sell your house to move in with him when you've known him for a month and a half, 2 months. So anyway, I was very like, a red flag. And of course I was right. But I also, knew ahead of time that this was not a perfect relationship, but still I felt really bad for her. And he was like threatening her sister, because her sister has some mental issues. And so whenever she turned the right age, she was going to move in with them. And then he was going to get rid of the wife and just keep the sister in his crazy dungeon. So anyway, this book was tense. I gave it, what did I give it? I think I gave it like 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's not perfect, but the writing is addicting and you don't want to put it down. Like, I read a majority of this book in like one sitting. So highly recommend it. It's on Kindle Unlimited as well if you like to read on your Kindle. And yeah, check it out. Next book I read was Universal Harvester by John Darnielle. That book unfortunately was not for me. I listened to it on audio, and the first half really hooked me. It was about a man who worked in a video store, and these video store customers, I guess I should say, they would come up and be like, hey, this movie's a little weird. It has something taped over, like a certain scene. And so as the complaints keep adding up, he brings the videos home and the movie's fine, and then all of a sudden it switches and it's like, like the found footage films when you can't really make out what's happening. And he would just watch these and he would be disturbed, and it was disturbing. Like, you just see somebody with a bag over their head for like a brief second, like moving around in a chair, and then you see some crops, and then you see a harvester. Like, it was just random images, and it was creepy. And then it would cut back to the film. So he kind of teams up with a couple people at his job and like somebody that he knows, and they watch these and they kind of like try to investigate and see like, hey, I know where that scene was shot, and they go investigate that. But then then the story switches. That's where it kind of lost my interest. It switches to like a man and a woman and their child doing this, and then it switches again and it goes back to where we were, and it was just very disjointed for me. If it had stayed that first half and they just kept investigating and then creepy things happened when they actually found the stuff, I think I would have liked that better than the jumping around. So I know it's supposed to represent stuff, and I'm probably just not reading into it, but when it's on audio and it kept jumping around, it just did not work for me. So maybe if I had actually sat down and read the book, it would have been a little different, but it just did not work for me. I was not vibing with it. So I gave this one 2 stars. I did wind up finishing it, but the ending just didn't wow me or anything. It didn't make it all worth it, all the storylines interconnected. So, but I know some people who love this book, and I'm not judging. I hope you loved it, and I'm glad that you did, but it just was not the book for me. The next book I read was Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. This book, again, was an addicting thriller. It's about a woman, and she works for like a journalist or like a talk show, I think it was. It's told in the point of view, like it jumps back and forth. We see in the beginning that she's in a coma, and then it leads up, like it's told in the story leading up to her being in the coma. And while she's in the coma, she can still hear people around her, and somehow she got in a horrible car wreck. So it just leads up to that. It's a very tense thriller. Definitely check trigger warnings though before you pick this one up. There are some scenes that can be triggering, so just a warning. But anyway, I did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. It's not my favorite Alice Feeney. Like, Rock, Paper, Scissors has my heart. I wasn't that big of a fan of Daisy Darker either, but Rock, Paper, Scissors has my heart. So anyway, a solid thriller by Alice Feeney. The next book I read or listened to was This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. It's a YA horror-esque novel about these 4 teenagers, and they are going to a music festival, which was hilarious because I actually wound up reading this book like leading up to when I was going to a little music festival in town. So it was hilarious. But this music festival, so there was like almost like a mini apocalypse, and all sorts of people were turning into ghouls, and these ghouls wanted to eat humans, obviously. And thankfully they were able to make this thing called Synflesh, and Synflesh was like synthetic flesh that they could eat in place of humans, and the ghouls could still function relatively normally. But at this festival, you know, the girls are having a good old time, and unfortunately somebody has mixed something with one of their drinks and things go a little crazy. They become a rabid ghoul again until they feed, and then they go back to normal, but strange things are happening. Like more and more people this is happening to. So there's like a second ghouling. I can't remember, what do they call it? I can't remember what they called it in the book, but it was some cool fancy name. But yeah, anyway, the girls try to get to the bottom of what is causing this, because one of them is becoming a rabid ghoul. So anyway, I really like this book. It like took me by surprise. I had seen some negative reviews about it, but I like to try to form my own opinion when I read. I don't like to try to look at reviews before I read because I don't want those to influence me. And I wound up having a really good time. There's a lot of representation in this book. And it was a lot of diversity. It was really a solid read. So I gave this one, what did I give it? I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun listen. And yeah, I had a blast. And you know what? Nobody turned into a rabid ghoul at my concert. And it was at Hosier. So thank you, because I would have been so sad if somebody tried to eat me while I was listening to him. The next book I read was Harrow Lake by Kat Ellis. And oh my gosh, this book was so good. I have had it on my shelf forever. And you know, you have that one book on your shelf and you're like, I'm going to read you this year. And then you don't. And then, okay, I'm going to read you next year. And you don't. That was this book. I've had it for at least 2.5 years. But I'm glad I finally got to it. It's about this girl, and her father is a big old, like, cult film director. He directs some really, really, really obscure films that have a huge fan base. So, but he gets stabbed in their apartment, and she is sent to live with her grandmother in the town that her mother grew up in, and this town was the focus of her father's first and most famous movie. So this town is like very old-fashioned. It's like set in the 20s, and there's a lot of creepy things happening. There's a creepy like puppet looking man that wants to get you. What's his name? Snap. I can't remember now. I think it's like Mr. Jingles or something. I can't remember exactly, but it's creepy. And then there's all sorts of weird things happening. She's seeing like a little doll that she used to have that was like a haunted doll from a movie set. It comes to talk to her, and she's just slowly kind of losing it in this town. Everybody's acting odd. it's just great. So if you like small town horror with some Hollywood / horror movie references and a very obscure ending, this book is for you. I gave this one 5 stars. I really, really love this book. And I was just on a roll this month. The next book I read was Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix. And oh my gosh, again, this is a book I have been sleeping on. It's on his backlist, and this book was just so much fun. It's like The Office meets horror. It's a great blend of horror, comedy. Things have been happening overnight at this knockoff IKEA store. And so corporate is coming down the next day, and the boss wants to see if he can figure out what is causing these things. Like furniture's getting ruined, weird like technology's being busted up, weird graffiti's being written on the walls. So he wants to find the perpetrator and then be like, hey, look, corporate, I found them. But things don't go as planned. They found like a homeless man in the horror store, and then they decided to do a seance. And guess what? Nothing good ever comes from a seance. So guess what? The ghosts come, and man, oh man, I guess this place used to be like a prison, and the warden used to be really strict, and so you have this ghost warden and all these ghost prisoners, and then he's taking the employees prisoner and putting them in awful devices. Oh, it's just great. And I gave that one 5 stars. I don't know if I mentioned that. I also read The September House by Carissa Orlando, and this is another book that blended horror and comedy really well. But this book will get to you. It's creepy in a very, very good way. But it is about a woman who knows that her house is haunted. Like the walls bleed every September, and the ghosts, there's like little pranksters, aka ghost children, that show up and try to get her to go into the basement where the really, really scary ghost is. And most of the ghosts are chill. Like she got one that will just clean her house for her. But during September, that one goes a little cray-cray and will stack things. But she knows the house is haunted, but dang it, this is her dream house. And she wants this house. And she's like, I ain't moving. Her husband's like, let's move. And she's like, I ain't moving, this is my house. So I really like this book. I wound up reading a good majority of it in like one day because I was obsessed. Really easy writing, and yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. Has a really great story to it, and yeah, I don't know, I'm just flapping my gums at this point. So just read it. It was my favorite book of September. The September House. So it kind of like, hey, pick me. So anyway, read it. It's so good. The next book I read was Hunted by Darcy Coates. This book was actually the book for the book club I host, which is Creep It Real Book Club, and you can find that on Instagram, and we're also on the Fable app now. But we read this book because our theme for September was haunted woods or creepy woods. So this book was really good. I really like Darcy Coates' writing. She has so many books, and a lot of her stories are just addicting, and I really love her haunted house stories. But this one centers on a woman who goes missing, and so her brother and his group of friends decide to go and investigate. She went missing in some woods, and there was some mysterious circumstances around her disappearance. Like her camera floated downstream and had pictures of like the trees and such. Like it starts out normal pictures, and then the trees and such pop in, and they can almost make like a figure or something behind one of the trees, so there might be a monster in the woods. So the group goes to investigate, and of course things go wrong because you don't go into forests. Forests are bad, okay? Very bad. You get lost in them, evil things try to kill you, you can't find your way out, something goes wrong, you get hurt, and you die. I need to like teach a class on this. You go into the woods, you die. So, but overall, I really liked this book. I gave it a solid 4 stars. I liked how it bounced back and forth between like the cops, the kids, and even the killer at times. So super fun. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I said I gave that one 4 stars, right? Totally. Okay, doing great. The next book I read was actually like my second favorite. Like it and The September House are super close in my eyes. And that is Fantastic Land by Mike Bachoven. I said it right. So this book, I highly recommend listening to it on audio if you can, because it's told in like interviews, and each chapter is a different interview from a park employee. So it's really good. The voice actors did a great job mixing up their characters and making each one sound different. Like, they did a really good job on that. But what happens is a hurricane hits. And so all the customers and park goers were, evacuated. They were gone. But the company wanted to keep some employees there, voluntary basis, of course. They would get paid overtime if they stayed. So a lot of employees were like, heck yeah, let's make some overtime, because all I had to do was sit in some shelters until help came. And they were expecting help to come relatively soon. But the hurricane was worse than anybody thought, and the power went out, and a lot of surrounding cities and such were so much worse. So when asked, like the people who were in charge, when asked if they should go in and rescue, they're like, no, they should be okay. They have plenty of food, resources, shelter. There's more people worse off than them. So don't worry about it. You can get to them whenever you finally get time. So unfortunately, the place around the city or the amusement park flooded, so nobody could leave. And then things started going bad really, 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 really quick. Like, they started forming factions, like, because you had the pirates, you had the fairies, you had the robots. And so all of these people started making their own factions, and it becomes Lord of the Flies, and everybody is trying to kill everybody. The worst people were the pirates. Like, the pirates were plundering and pillaging, doing what pirates do. They were living up to their name, and they would come and try to steal resources from certain people, and they would kill, and then they would take hostages and all sorts of stuff. So it was very tense in this park. There was like heads on spikes. There was dead bodies everywhere. It was intense. And listening to this on audio was just fantastic. Like, it was really cool to see through different points of view in the park with these interviews of people who survived this. So I gave this one 5 stars. It's such a great read, and I wish I had picked it up sooner. So I'm totally a professional. I just realized I read 18 books this month. I forgot the arc because I updated my Instagram, and I had like all of my books, and I forgot, like, on my like recap, I forgot to put my arc that I just finished not too long ago. So oops. Anyway, I read 18 books this month. I'm doing great. Okay, anyway. So the next book that I read was The Ritual by Adam Nevill. And holy crap, this book gave me nightmares. I read this a little too close to bedtime, aka literally like right before I went to sleep. And I dreamt of a creepy forest that took me hostage and would not let me leave. So anyway, this book is about a creepy forest that took these men hostage and would not let them leave. So these guys are on like a little vacation. It's like a reunion, and they got back together after a long time. They haven't seen each other since college, some of them. But they bicker a lot. Like, these are grown men, and they like to fight. So they're walking through the forest. They thought they were just taking a shortcut to get back to their hotel or whatnot sooner. And unfortunately, the shortcut doesn't go the way they planned. The forest is very old and creepy, and yeah, things start getting weird. Like, not even like 20-30 pages in, they come across this effigy, and it's just like a gutted animal, and it's hung up in the trees, and it's disgusting. And that's kind of some foreshadowing for the future. So anyway, they've come across this old like house, and they stay in it, and they all have horrible nightmares in this house, and they keep trekking, and things keep getting worse, and one by one they're picked off. And yeah, this book is tense. Okay, like, it's 400 pages long, and I will say the first half is way spookier than the second half, just because of certain circumstances, which I will not spoil. But overall, this book scared the heebie-jeebies out of me. I gave it 4 stars just because the bickering did kind of get old, and some of it became a little repetitive. It's like, okay, we get it. You guys are mad at each other. Just stop fighting, please. And I will say the movie did do a pretty great job. There's obviously a lot of differences, but I did enjoy the movie as well as the book. So this is a good one to check out. Now, the book that I forgot, because I am great at being both an Instagrammer and a YouTuber, is Let Him In by William Friend. This is, I think, a debut book, and it is about a man who lost his wife roughly about 9 months ago or so. And unfortunately, he's been taking it hard along with his twin daughters. So then the twin daughters are like, hey, Dad, one night, there's a man in our room And he's like, what? And so he goes to investigate. He don't find anybody there. And so they keep doing this every night. And eventually he's just like, there ain't nobody in your room. Go back to bed. And so this happens for a little while. And then one day they're like, hey, Dad, meet our new imaginary friend. Or they don't say imaginary friend. But they're like, meet our new friend. His name is Black Mamba. He's like the snake. And so he can transform into anything. He can be a snake. He can be a bird. He flew us to the moon one night. He let us go down in the train and he became a fish and a whale. And so the dad's like, yeah, it's an imaginary friend. But then things start taking a turn for the worse. Like this imaginary friend is telling the girls to do bad things. One of the sisters is beating the other sister up. And so it's up to the dad and then the aunt, Pippa's sister, to try to solve what's going on with the kids. And so anyway, this book was really good, except I did not like the ending. There's some decisions that some certain characters makes that I do not agree with at all. And then the ending was just kind of ambiguous. Like there was a lot of questions that did not get answered, and it felt a little rushed to me. So I gave this one like 3.5 stars. Overall, it is a solid atmospheric read, and it's really heavy on the characters. But at the same time, I wanted some answers. Okay, these next ones I'm going to kind of just rapid fire review just because there are 6 books in a row. So starting out, we have Big Bad. Here, I'm just going to bring this closer just so I don't mess up. Big Bad by Chandler Baker. And this book was about a woman and a husband who are going through a little bit of a hardship. And they're currently living out in the woods because of certain circumstances that I will not elaborate on. But things get a little creepy. It involves wolves and rawr. So I gave this one 4 stars. This one's like 59 pages or something. It was a lot of fun. You can kind of guess what's going to happen. Like, well, I wouldn't say what's going to happen, but what a certain character is about midway through. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. It's a great short story, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, you should check this one out. Another one of the short stories was Best of Luck by Jason Mott. This one is about 2 men. One has horrible luck, the other has great luck. And the one that has horrible luck thinks that the one who has great luck has been sucking his luck, and horrible things have been happening. So, you know what? He wakes him up with a shotgun, and they have a good talk. And I gave that one 4 stars. That one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that one so much. The next one is It Waits in the Woods by Josh Malerman. This one was my favorite, I think, out of the bunch. It's about a girl who one night in the woods lost her sister. And 3 years later, she goes back to try to find her, or at least find the legend that she thinks took her. It was really fun. I enjoyed the journey. And yeah, the monster was creepy. The next one was The Pram by Joe Hill. This one is about a woman and a man who unfortunately recently had a miscarriage, and they try to get a fresh start. And there's like a little trail that cuts through the woods to get to town. So the husband takes that trail to get to the town, and he buys some groceries at the store. But guess what? He doesn't really have enough strength to get the groceries back. So the grocery seller gives him a pram, which is a fancy carriage from like the 1920s or something. And as he drives back and forth every time he needs to get groceries, he keeps thinking he sees a baby in the carriage. So things get creepy really, really fast. Gave that one 4 stars. And last but not least was The Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. This one's only like 27 pages long. And it's about a man who, when he was young, his father left him because his father killed his mother. But his father told him that the ankle snatcher killed his mother, and to never leave the bed, step off the bed without turning the lights on, because if not, the ankle snatcher will get you. Well, this man now has a girlfriend. He invited her over for the night, and she gets out of bed without the lights on, and it's just like his father all over again. That's all I can say. I gave that one 4 stars. It was really fun too. Oh, I forgot one more. In Bloom by Paul Tremblay. So this was my least favorite of them. I gave this one 3 stars. It's about killer allergies. That's the season. Killer algae. And there was a monster in the algae. And this woman and this man meet up, and this man tells her all about the time that his dad took him to a baseball game, and the algae attacked, basically. So it's about 35 pages long, but it just didn't really hold my interest, unfortunately. I really like Paul Tremblay as a writer, but this book just wasn't for me, unfortunately. It felt like a coming of age story almost. And last but not least, on my 18 book journey this month, not 17, wow, was Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. And this book was just fantastic. This is another one I've been sleeping on for a while, and I kept hearing people say, oh, it's great, it's such a great book. And I'm like, I bet it is, but guess what? I haven't gotten to it yet. But yeah, this book is a solid YA horror thriller. It's about a small town, and there's definitely a divide in the town. And Friendo the clown decides to take some revenge. The kids are having a party, and all of a sudden bodies start dropping. And this book starts like midway. Like, it is action packed. Like, by about page 150 through 340, it is just straight action. So I highly recommend this book. I gave this one 5 stars. It was so much fun, and it's actually a bit gory for a YA book. So don't let the YA rating like creep you out or scare you away, because this book, I mean, it's mature. It has its YA moments, but it's mature for what it is. And there's chainsaws and shotguns and bam, parts go flying. So seriously, you should check this book out. So that has been my chaotic breakdown of what I read in September. And obviously, as I said, I'm doing a great job. 17 books became 18 books in this thing. So, but thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, drop a comment, come talk to me. And if you want to, come follow me on Instagram. I am at pages_and_ash. So come follow me. We're having a great time, and thank you so much. Drop down a comment what kind of videos you want to see in the future. Spooky month is my month, so I will have to bring you some more spooky reads and spooky recs. Thank you guys. I hope you have a great day.